Have you ever stood in the kitchen, watching your grandchild push their food around the plate and thought, it wasn't this hard when we were raising kids? Maybe you've said it out loud. Or maybe it was just a quiet thought as you offered another bite of something they used to love yesterday. Feeding kids today can feel like tiptoeing through a minefield. Too much sugar, not enough veggies, picky eaters, food allergies, and all the while, you just want them to be healthy and grow strong. And maybe, just maybe, you've seen your own child, their parent, do things that make you want to gently step in, but you hesitate. You don't want to overstep. You don't want to offend. But you do want to help. And let me tell you something right now, your experience matters. The wisdom you've gathered over the years, the care you bring to your family's table, that's powerful. In this video, we're going to talk about something that hits close to home for many of us, feeding mistakes that can quietly chip away at a child's health. Now, this isn't about guilt or blame. It's not about pointing fingers. It's about awareness. Because when we know better, we can do better, not just as parents or grandparents, but as a whole family raising a new generation. We're going to look at 5 common habits, things we've all seen, maybe even done, that can have a real impact on a child's physical and emotional well-being. And more importantly, we'll talk about what to do instead. Nothing fancy, nothing extreme. Just thoughtful shifts that can truly make a difference. Let's start with one of the most common traps, using food as a reward, or worse, as a bribe. It sounds harmless, right? If you finish your broccoli, you can have dessert. Or if you're good at the store, we'll get ice cream after. We've all heard it, maybe we've even said it. But here's the thing, when we link food to behavior like that, we're teaching kids that food, especially sweets or treats, is a prize. And before we know it, their bodies stop listening to hunger cues and start listening to emotion. I saw this play out with a friend of mine and her grandson. He was struggling with separation anxiety at school, and every morning, she'd say, "If you don't cry at drop-off, we'll go get a donut afterward." It worked for a while, but then the donuts stopped helping, and the tears came back. And now, not only was he still anxious, but he was also expecting a sugary treat as part of the routine. Food shouldn't be the payoff for good behavior, and it shouldn't be the comfort for bad days either. When we use food this way, we're unintentionally laying the groundwork for emotional eating later on, something many of us have wrestled with ourselves. A better path is to celebrate in non-food ways. A hug, a sticker, a walk together, even just saying, "I'm really proud of how you handled that today." It teaches kids that their effort is the reward. That feeling confident or calm or brave is the prize. Now let's talk about another big one, forcing kids to clean their plate. Oh boy, this one is deeply ingrained for many of us. There are starving children who would be grateful for this food. You're not leaving the table until that plate is empty. Sound familiar? We said those things because we didn't want waste. Because we valued food. And there's nothing wrong with that. But today, we know a little more about how kids grow and how their appetite changes from day to day. Forcing a child to eat when they say they're full teaches them to override their body's natural signals. And when those signals get confused, it opens the door to overeating, discomfort, and even anxiety around meals. I remember my grandson once telling me, "Grandma, my tummy says stop, but my plate still has food." That moment really hit me. He wasn't being picky. He was listening to his body. And isn't that what we want? To raise kids who trust themselves, who know when to say yes and when to say no? Instead of pushing for a clean plate, we can shift the language. Try saying, "Listen to your belly. Eat until you feel just right." Or, "You can save the rest for later if you're full now." And if waste is a worry, which I completely understand, serve smaller portions to start. They can always come back for seconds. But let the choice be theirs. Both of these habits, using food as a reward and forcing clean plates, come from a place of love. Of wanting our children and grandchildren to eat well, grow strong, and feel happy. But love isn't always about doing what feels easy or traditional. Sometimes, it's about learning new ways and being willing to adapt. You, as a grandparent or older adult, have a beautiful role to play here. Your calm voice, your patient approach, your ability to slow down and be present at the table, those are gifts. You're not just helping feed their bodies. You're feeding their relationship with food, their trust in themselves, and their long-term health. So if you ever find yourself second-guessing or feeling unsure about how to help without stepping on toes, remember this: start with curiosity, not correction. Ask your child how you can support their feeding goals. Share your memories. Listen. And when you do offer a suggestion, do it with kindness, not judgment. Something like, I read something interesting the other day about how kids learn to trust their tummies. It made me think of when you were little. Now that we've looked at these first two feeding mistakes, using food as a bribe and the clean plate pressure, it's clear how much impact our words and actions around food can have. Even the smallest habits at the table shape how kids learn to nourish themselves, not just now, but for the rest of their lives. That brings us to another common mistake that sneaks in quietly: relying too much on processed or packaged foods, especially the ones labeled kid-friendly. You know the ones I'm talking about: bright colors, cartoon characters, the kind that seem to jump off the shelf and into the shopping cart before you even realize it. Granola bars, fruit snacks, crackers shaped like animals, they look harmless, even helpful when you're in a rush. But many of these foods are packed with hidden sugars, sodium, and preservatives that can really take a toll on a child's health over time. And I understand, it's not easy. Life is busy, and cooking every single meal from scratch just isn't realistic for most families. But what we can do is be more mindful of how often these foods show up on the plate. And even more importantly, we can help kids build a taste for real food, food that nourishes them, not just fills them. I remember one afternoon when I was helping my daughter during a particularly hectic week. I'd offered to pack my grandson's lunch for daycare. She handed me a lunchbox and said, "You can grab a pack of those fruit snacks from the pantry." I looked at the box, apple-shaped, bright red, said "made with real fruit" in big letters. But when I flipped it over, the first three ingredients were corn syrup, sugar, and gelatin. Real fruit? Maybe in spirit. Instead of tossing it in, I cut up some fresh strawberries, added a handful of plain popcorn, and tucked in a little note. When my daughter got home, she smiled and said, "He actually ate the whole thing." See, kids don't always need all the bells and whistles. Sometimes, they just need a grown-up who's willing to try something a little different. You don't have to overhaul the pantry overnight. Just one swap here and there: fresh fruit instead of gummy snacks, whole grain crackers instead of the cheesy puffs, it adds up. And if you're spending time with your grandkids during meals or snacks, that's your moment to guide them toward those better choices. Now let's talk about something that's surprisingly easy to overlook: pressuring kids to eat on a schedule that doesn't match their hunger. It usually comes from a well-meaning place. We've all said, "It's lunchtime, you have to eat now," or "You can't have a snack, dinner's in an hour." But here's the thing: kids don't always feel hunger on our schedule. And forcing them to eat when they're not hungry can confuse their natural cues. Think about how we adults handle food. Some days we're starving by noon, other days we're still full from breakfast. It's the same for children. Their appetite changes based on their growth, their sleep, their activity, and even their emotions. Forcing them to eat just because it's time can turn meals into battles, and battles turn into stress. And no one digests well when they're stressed. I had a neighbor, a lovely woman who watched her granddaughter every afternoon after school. She had a habit of offering a snack the moment the little one walked through the door. One day, the child said, "Grandma, I'm not hungry." But Grandma insisted, "You always eat at this time, just have a few bites." The girl pushed back, and soon, it became a daily argument. Eventually, my neighbor tried something different. She asked, "Would you like to sit with me and chat first?" They sat at the table, talked about the day, and within 15 minutes, her granddaughter said, "Now I think I'm hungry." It was such a simple shift, but it changed everything. The child still ate, but she did it on her own terms, when her body was ready. That's not to say we should let kids graze all day long without structure. Mealtime routines are important, but they should have a bit of flexibility built in. That gentle balance between guidance and listening goes a long way. Sometimes, just asking, "Is your belly hungry right now?" instead of "It's time to eat," gives a child the space they need to make a mindful decision. And really, that's the goal here, not to control what or when kids eat, but to guide them in building a healthy, respectful relationship with food. One where they feel safe, not pressured. Where they listen to their bodies and trust that adults will support, not override, those instincts. If there's one thing I've learned in all my years as a parent, grandparent, and observer of family life, it's this: food is about so much more than nutrition. It's comfort. It's connection. It's culture and memory and emotion, all served on a plate. When we feed a child, we're not just nourishing their body, we're shaping how they see the world and how they care for themselves in it. That's why these feeding mistakes matter. Not because we're trying to be perfect, but because small habits, repeated often, become a foundation. And you, as someone who's seen the seasons of life come and go, are in a perfect position to help that foundation grow strong. Whether it's making a fresh snack together, sitting and sharing a quiet meal, or just letting a child say, "I'm full," without question, you are helping them develop the kind of inner voice that says, "I matter. My needs matter. I can take care of myself." And that's the real win. That's the kind of health that lasts a lifetime. Now, the last feeding mistake I want to share with you is one that often goes unnoticed, even though it's happening right in front of us, not involving kids and the food experience. I'm talking about the shopping, the preparing, the cooking, everything that leads up to the plate. It's easy to think, "They're too young for that," or "It's just faster if I do it myself," and trust me, I've had those thoughts too. But when we leave kids out of the process, we miss a powerful opportunity to teach, connect, and grow. You see, kids are naturally curious. They want to touch, explore, and feel like they're part of something. When they're invited into the kitchen, even just to wash veggies, stir a bowl, or pick which fruit to slice, they start building a relationship with food that's about more than just eating. It becomes something they understand, respect, and even take pride in. I remember a weekend when my granddaughter stayed with me. She was 5 at the time, full of questions and always wanting to help. We were making dinner, and instead of shooing her out of the kitchen like I was tempted to, I gave her a task. I handed her a mushroom and said, "Can you wipe this clean for me?" Her little face lit up like I'd handed her the keys to the kingdom. That evening, when we sat down to eat, she pointed to the bowl and said, "I made those." She ate every single mushroom in that dish, mushrooms she wouldn't touch a week earlier, because she'd been part of the magic. Involving kids in the food journey makes them more likely to try new things. It gives them confidence. And perhaps most importantly, it plants the seeds of independence. When they see how food goes from the ground, or the grocery store, to their plate, they start to understand what nourishing themselves really means. Even small steps count. Let them help write the shopping list. Let them pick one new vegetable to try each week. Let them rinse the rice, snap the green beans, or mash the potatoes. Sure, it might get messy. Sure, it might take a little longer. But the payoff is worth it. Because you're not just feeding a child. You're raising a future adult who knows how to care for themselves. And you, dear viewer, are a big part of that story. Whether you live nearby and see your grandkids regularly or only connect through the occasional FaceTime or holiday visit, you matter. Your influence, your gentle encouragement, your lived experience, those are gifts that no app, no blog, no how-to-book can replace. Now let's take a step back and breathe it all in. We've looked at some of the most common feeding missteps families make: bribing with food, forcing clean plates, overdoing processed snacks, ignoring hunger cues, and leaving kids out of the process. And remember, none of these are about blame. We've all been there. We've all had moments where convenience won out, where emotions ran high, where old habits resurfaced. But the beauty of this journey is that it's never too late to do things differently. You don't need to make huge, sweeping changes overnight. Just one new approach, one softer phrase, one patient invitation into the kitchen can shift a child's whole outlook on food and on themselves. Because when we talk about raising healthy children, we're not just talking about bones and muscles and vitamins. We're talking about helping them grow into people who listen to their bodies, who feel safe around food, who aren't ashamed of being full or curious or even unsure. And that starts with us, with the adults in their lives modeling calm, thoughtful, loving behaviors. So I encourage you, whether you're packing lunches, hosting Sunday dinners, or just chatting on the phone with your grown children about what the grandkids are eating, bring your wisdom into the mix. Ask questions. Share stories. And lead with love. Maybe you say something like, "I've been thinking about how different food is today than when you were little." Or, "I saw an idea about helping kids listen to their bodies at mealtime, and it made so much sense." Keep the conversation open. Keep it kind. And trust that your voice carries weight in the best possible way. And if you're feeling overwhelmed, or like you missed your chance, please don't. You have so much to offer, no matter what stage of life your family is in. Every hug, every meal, every moment of connection is another opportunity to make a difference. The fact that you're here, watching this, means you care. It means you're showing up. And that's half the battle right there. Now, if this video spoke to you, I'd love for you to share your thoughts in the comments. What were meals like when your children were young? Have you noticed any changes in how your grandchildren eat? Maybe you found a small trick that helps your family come together at the table. Share it. We learn so much from each other in these conversations. And if you found value here, I'd be so grateful if you'd give this video a thumbs up or even subscribe to the channel. That way, we can keep growing this beautiful little community of wise, caring souls who want to make life better for ourselves and the generations after us. Because at the end of the day, raising healthy children isn't just about feeding them right. It's about feeding them love, security, and the kind of guidance that lasts a lifetime. Here's to you, and to the many ways your care and presence are shaping healthier, happier futures. Here's to living your best life, at any age.